Hi there YouTube, it's the Magnus bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. This time my opponent chose to play as the stunty Dwarfs and I brought the Empire. So let's take a look at the composition here. It's a new one I have for against the Dwarfs. I was trying to refine on what I had before. So you're going to notice across the middle here I have 5 Greatswords. And then I have 1 Flagellant and 1 Halberdier. Behind them I have 2 of the handgunners. But of course I have the Sunmaker. That's something I will never change. Too much fun. Amber Wizard and the General of the Empire. Taking a look at my opponent's build, he did bring 1 Gyrocopter with the Brimstone gun. He has a front line of Longbeards ×3. I believe he has a Dwarf Warrior over here, and then on the other side a Dwarf Warrior as well for a total of 2. He also has 2 Thanes, 1 on each side, a Runesmith, Thorgrim Grudgebearer, 1 Thunderer and 1 Quarreler, and Dragonback Slayers, which I think I've seen in about every Dwarf build. They are good, so it's good to see that the Dwarfs got some new units that people are regularly using. So let's go ahead and take a look at how things get started off. Of course, the Sunmaker is going to start making it rain, and I aim for his Thunderers, knowing I'll get lots of surround. I advance my Flyers to go after the Gyrocopter. We certainly don't want to give that thing free reign. It can be quite a nuisance. And then while I'm up this close to his line, I'm going to go ahead and toss down a Flock of Doom and start to work even more on the HP of these units. And then I'm going to pull back with my flying, because getting shot is not something that flying units generally enjoy. So for the meantime, it's all about the Sunmaker. I think it helps him a little bit the way the terrain is here. It's not going to be, my artillery is not going to be quite as accurate. And I'm also on a slight downhill here, but in a bit I'm going to move up to try to deal with that. Again, I'm just kind of mirroring his Gyrocopter here. Don't want to let him get any free, cheap shots in on the flanks or anything tricky like that. So I just kind of mirror him on that front. The Gyrocopter is quite quick, and unless you get close enough to where you're charging with a unit with 90+ speed, you're not going to be able to touch the darn thing. So they can be tricky to deal with, but thankfully there's just one of them, and I have missiles, which are the best counter to these guys. They take damage from pretty quickly. So my opponent begins to advance, still leaving the Slayers in reserve. If he didn't, my butt would be flying over here to take care of his cannon, because it's a pretty powerful unit. And as you see now, I'm starting to move up with my line so I can get a little better angle. And also I like to attack very quickly on the heels of finishing my ammo, not just to be time efficient, but because if you're really quick, they'll still have that negative from being targeted by artillery, and it still puts you in a situation where you're in control, which is always a good thing. So now his Gyrocopter is going to make a move in on my left. I'm going to send the flying to go after him, not taking the threat lightly. I also have my guns turn and fire on him. He's going to attempt to run. My guys are going to get into charge speed, and that's going to allow the Feral Manticore to actually get some hits on it. Right after it broke, it tried to swing back, probably following an old retreat order, and it's going to take pretty considerable damage. Our lines are now going to meet. A lot of the Dwarf powers right here, but he also has this interesting overloaded flank with the Thane over there. I have my gunner shooting, and my artillery is still shooting at his range, because I can shoot them without taking damage myself. In the meantime, I'm going to send my Flying Corps to try to take down this cannon. Now, of course, Dragonback Slayers are quite good against large flying units, like what I'm going to use. But I do have a buff I can put down here in a second. You'll see me do that, because it basically buys you a decent bit of time where you're really hard to damage. So yeah, withstand your ground, plus 16 leadership, plus 36 melee defense. And they're attacking my general, and he's taking damage, but nowhere near the rate he would without stand your ground. The other thing they don't seem to be that great at is pinning flying units. So a lot of times you can get in with stand your ground, do the damage you need to do, and then fly away. And you're going to see, even though they have a slow effect and whatnot, you're going to be able to get out of there. I also have some guns being shot there. You can see the Sunmaker. I'm kind of spreading my love all over the field with it. It's great for that. 62 kills. But the thing you have to think about with artillery when you get those kills, if the vast majority of that damage and those kills happen before the rest of the engagement, that's a huge advantage because they're already weakened when they go to attack you. So you can see these coilers are having a hell of a time. I am having some trouble getting away from Dragonback Slayers. That's to be expected, but I'm not too worried about it. Over here on the left, things look favorable for me. In the center, I would say it's for him. And on the right now, it's for him. So as far as the infantry versus infantry battle, he's definitely kicking my butt, which again is not something I'm surprised by. So now I'm going to start making a play on the Runesmith. Him and his buffs are just too good to leave lying around. His gyrocopter that recovered, he's brought it back, so we're going to have to open up fire on that with our handguns here, and they're going to make quick work of it, and boom, mayday, mayday. Black Hawk is down. Don't have to worry about those guys anymore. His Runesmith hanging in there like crazy, but with the rune of negation and things like that, not surprising. And now I decide I really want to deal with these Dragonback Slayers because they're a huge threat to my most threatening units. So I'm going to use guns. I'm going to use this Greatsword unit, anything I can to try to bring them down. So after the Runesmith retreats, we're going to chase him. We put good damage on Thorgrim, but right now my priority is get rid of the Runesmith. And I was able to isolate him, so any runes that he might be able to use or his passive stuff is not affecting any of his allied units. And I would say the mistake of the day is I didn't realize these guys got back to their cannon until far too late, and that's a pretty pretty dangerous piece to be ignorant of. But I'm hoping here if I can get rid of Thorgrim, I'll be in good shape. I have my gunners shooting in the back of his Slayers. They're armor piercing, and the Slayers don't have armor, but they certainly aren't bulletproof either. And I want to get them dead or as close to dead as possible, because right now they're the only thing standing between Thorgrim and getting his skull lumped in. You're going to see as he brings in all these units, my Manticore is going to freak out, and so is my General. And the balance bar starts to shift back, and I start to get nervous. A lot of my units here are either retreating or thinking about retreating, and I'm very concerned about a mass rout. His cannon fire is doing a good job of keeping my General in a unhappy state leadership-wise, so that's an issue. He gets one of his Thanes into my handgunners. I have to pull back a Greatsword to try to stop him, and he's getting shot point blank here by the handgunners. So I'm hoping I can put him down quickly. I do. He's very, very dead from the firing squad there. And then after that, bringing in the flying into his shaken remains of an army, it's going to result in a victory for the Empire. So let's take a look at the tail of the tape. The Flagellants did nothing because they have no armor piercing. I don't know what to do with the leftover money, but I need to do something different than Flagellants because I like the fact that they don't run, but for the love of God, 8 kills is very sad. And of course, they're very, very susceptible to missiles, having no armor, no shield. The Halberdiers did fine. Again, that's a money issue. I'd rather they be a Greatsword. Greatswords were great. They should be called Dwarf Killers because that's what they're good at. The handgunners did well. I'm very pleased with the Sunmaker, putting down 72 kills out of 586. That's more than 10% of his army that was deceased before the engagement really began. Gotta love that. Leader group did what what they're good at in the Amber Wizard, the Flock of Doom, and the Manticore. It's one of the best values in the game. Taking a look at my opponent, who I'd like to say good game to. He was very courteous. He was a cool guy to talk to. I feel for the most part he played quite well. And I enjoy challenge. I think you guys know that. So his Dwarf Warriors, especially this one, put in great work, whereas the Longbeards kind of suffered. The Dragonback Slayers were well used. If you could bring 2 of them, it might be a whole different story. But since they're a regiment of renown, I still think he got good value out of that. His missiles, I really picked on them, and it showed. The gyrocopter, if I was going to change one thing about his build, I'd take out the gyrocopter. I just don't, as long as I have flying or missiles, which I'm likely to have both, or at least one when you're playing as the Empire. So I feel like this is just a non-starter for him. Spend his money somewhere else. His cannon didn't get a lot of kills, but he constantly was shooting at my flying corps and did a decent bit of damage. That thing is pretty darn accurate. The Thanes were fantastic. Those guys are straight up killers. Runesmith, no explanation needed. And Thorgrim, pretty much the same thing. So definitely a good battle. But it looks like I've got a pretty good handle on beating the Dwarfs using the Empire. This build still needs some refinement, but I feel it's getting better every time we make a change. So anyways, until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I'll see you on the ladder.